Welcome back, dear viewers, and thank you for staying with us here on Nile Cruise. Well, Decent Life Initiative is changing the lives of people living in rural areas across Egypt as the result of the end of the first phase of that presidential initiative. In 2019, with the hope of improving the lives of underprivileged Egyptians, the government launched its Decent Life Initiative, Hayat Karima, a national project for the development of the Egyptian countryside. The initiative is targeting half of Egypt's 102 million people that live in 4,658 villages across the country, most of which have suffered from neglect. It will bring about change in many aspects of the lives of the people in these villages, notably by investing in human capital, the abilities of the village inhabitants themselves, and by raising the quality of development services. How much progress has been accomplished thus far in that momentum enterprise? What are the goals of this national project, the criteria applied in the initiative, and much more with our distinguished guest here on Nile Cruise, Dr. Taha Ali, political researcher. Good day, Dr. Ali. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Dr. Ali, a very good day, and it's always a pleasure to have you with us on our program Nile Cruise, and a very wonderful day on the Nile banks, of course, here from El Maniel in Egypt, of course, in Cairo. Doctor, to start with, how do you see the state's keenness to improve the living conditions for the neediest villages in Egypt?
Well, the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, first of all, he said that the stability and state building process development will never be succeed without the satisfaction of the citizens, especially those who are all over the country, not in Cairo, not in the capital, not the great governorates. Egypt had before at least more than 60% of the Egyptian population were living in neglect and life, and there is a very wide social slides of Egyptian population were suffering from neglectance and poverty. So the cornerstone of the development process and the state building should be launched from the developmental project, especially this initiative.
Right. So, how do you see the initiative itself? I mean, a very noble goal of changing the lives of many needy Egyptians, give them better education, better health services, better drinking water, better infrastructure, and so on. How do you see the
as I mentioned
itself?
before, the Egyptian citizen will never can participate in and play his basic role to build his country without his basic needs like water, as you mentioned, good education, healthy food, and healthy life in general, and also decent housing. So the initiative includes many elements of this and many access to support and fight the poverty rates. So we have to decrease and reduce the poverty rates in order to see a good citizen that he can participate in his social role, political role, and support his country against any trial of stabilizing Egyptian society, as we saw before. The problem started in Egypt after 2012. It was basically because of the spreading of poverty around the country. So it's very important to fight the reason of uprising, to reason of the anger of the Egyptian people. So we have to find the reasons. The first reason and the basic reason is the poverty. It's the first step should be launched from the fighting poverty.
Doctor, as the state tends to digitalization, what about creating a network with searching data among the NGOs to be able to reach the neediest people, especially the doctor that The NGOs pay so much effort to help the government and to help the needy people, and they need this to be facilitated for the NGOs. So this is something that we really have to take into consideration, because they really work very hard with not, I don't want to say no support, there is support, but not, they need more support, because they are doing this out of courtesy and love for their country. They're not doing this when they're supposed to be doing it.
Actually, for the role of the NGOs in Egypt should be seen as from two aspects. The first is that networking and creating networks between Egyptian populations is very important to facilitate the government plan, development plan. So the first is networking to facilitate the government plan. The second one is to encourage people to participate in such plan. It's based upon the value of participation. NGOs working upon some values like the shared responsibility. You have to participate people to support their government. You have to convince them. You have to support them to convince them that you have to support the plan to be implemented. For example, in some villages, the first of the initiative, they found very critical issue. Most of people, first of all, they didn't understand anything about the initiative. Why we cannot leave our houses to be developed? What is development, you mean? So we have some party that convince people what is going on in their country, to convince them to participate in the initiative. I think this is the main role of the NGOs, especially they are a channel between the government and the population. That's why the NGO is very important to be involved. It's very important to be involved in the implementing the decentralization.
Right, and Dr. Ali, of course, such a mammoth initiative needs a lot of harmony and coordination between all concerned parties. I mean, you have the government, you have NGOs, you have the private sector, and then there is society at large with all its, talented people, the volunteers that are willing to give effort to help others. So the importance of coordination and harmony between all interested parties, yeah,
that's an important point, because the development is a comprehensive process. As we mentioned, that it's social life. The private sector is very important actor in this process. NGOs, as we mentioned before, the government is the main player of this, and the understanding of population is very important. So it is very massive, the comprehensive. All parties should participate. The government will never be the only party who can do everything in the country, but the private sector and NGOs also, private sector by their fund also, and their understanding of what do people need for their lives, and it's comprehensive process.
Doctor, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man. Give a man a fish, and you teach him for a day. Teach a man to fish, and you teach him for a lifetime, and it's a proverb. It's a proverb. Huh? How do you view this proverb, and how for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises boost the economy?
It's a main pillar of the initiative to create projects, micro projects, to help the neediest families in Egypt around the countryside to create their work. I can give you money, but I cannot give. It's very hard to give you profession to help you to create a work opportunity. A main axis of the Decent Life initiative is to create small projects and fund them by the private sector, as we mentioned before, and all over the countryside. So it's very important to create such projects. And the second point, to help them to create, to be leaders in their small environment, and we don't have to wait the government to give us all we need. We have to work to create to improve our lives, not the others.
Right.
Okay, sorry, Mohammed.
Yes,
What about the proverb, sir? What do you think about the proverb?
Yeah, it's very important to understand. This should be involved in our culture. You don't have to give me fish. You should teach me. You should how to fish.
And speaking of the point Rana mentioned and the proverb, I wanted to ask you about the importance of training the youth, educating them, and developing their skills. I mean, how much is that point important in reaching the sustainable development goals in the future and in upholding a decent life indeed for all?
Yeah, this is very it's related to the previous question. Is you have to teach me how to fish. So you have to give me a training to do some work. You have to give me a training I think the most strong need I need as a young man in Egypt is to be able to work. So most of complaints by private sectors that we have many young men who are working to want works, but they cannot work. How? Because they don't know how to work. You have to teach them actually, and also we have to this very contribute to create a new generation of leaders, of professionals, and also I think the Ministry of Education should play an important role in this to make a link between the education and the labor market. That's why it's very important to support training courses in schools, in universities, in think tanks, training centers, and also NGOs have to play an important role in this.
Oh, sir, but NGOs have to be provided with everything they need. They have to. The government has to work hard with the government, with the non-governmental organizations to enhance and facilitate what they are trying to work on.
Yes, yes. But I have to note a very important point in this point.
So you want to pinpoint a very important note.
I want them to be involved, to be more involved in this process. NGOs. Previously, we heard many talks about NGOs' role in society. Some people focused only on their political role. We have to participate in the demonstration, democratization, blah blah blah, etc. But I think the main role of the NGOs to participate in developing their country, not to spread awareness of the values of work, value of solidarity, to value of your state building. That's why I think we have to understand a new vision of what is NGO.
Exactly, that's what I'm trying to pinpoint to, sir, since we started. That there has to be very close collaboration between the NGOs and the government to facilitate the work of the NGOs, not to give a chance for the NGOs to work on political basis or on individual basis. They have to work for the country, for the reason they are around for.
The NGOs work upon some values, voluntary.
Exactly. These are the main aspects that we want to work on. So we have to help them as the government from here. We have to let the government
from the NGOs, like spreading the values like shared responsibility and voluntary also. And I think the NGOs, because it's coming from the population, it's more aware of what the people think and how they think also. You can. So I think it works as a coordinator, facilitator also. That's why it's very important to be involved in all over the initiative sites.
Well, the youth are very important here, and I want to ask you, how can the youth help implement also this initiative, Decent Life initiative, and best benefit from it? I mean, from the two sides, because the youth are the one. I mean, when you said that the NGOs should know how the people think, it's how the youth think. Maybe the youth are the future.
Most of
So-
the NGOs
so-
are youth as well.
Yeah. But I think it's one of the
Many volunteers. You mean the youth volunteers?
Yeah. I think it's very important gains we gained from the social movements in Egypt recently, and social Egypt saw very important wave of social mobilization, socialization between all Egyptians, all sides of Egyptian population now became more aware of what's happening around them. It's not only youth, it's also the elderly and all people. I think have to
But
participate.
there are some gaps that need to be filled between generations.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think this is the role of the NGOs. You have to make a link between elderly and young people, and also between the population and the citizens and the government. And this is a main function of the NGOs.
Okay, it's your turn.
yeah, no.
Go ahead.
So
So you decided to take my turn,
no, it was your turn.
and I did not concentrate, so you took it.
No,
over.
that's not what I meant. But if you want to go ahead,
I'm
it's
joking,
okay.
Mohammed. Go ahead.
That's okay. So the Ministry of Social Solidarity, Dr. Ali, was put in charge of developing Egypt's poorest 1,000 villages. Now, how much have we succeeded in doing that? I mean, how far have we gone into implementing this project, and how much do we have left?
I think if you visit some Egyptian village in the Upper Egypt, you can touch what is happening there. As you mentioned, the Minister of Social Solidarity is responsible for, is in charge of implementing the initiative, and a very great job and very great story has been achieved in Egypt all over the country. But I think the results is different from government into others. I think it depends on the specialty of this area and this area also. But anyway, recently we read many stories, good stories and flourish stories from the Upper Egypt that some villages that has been very great achievements in reaching water and repairing some hospitals, and also natural gas to all over the country. Also, so all this, I think a good achievement have been done in Egypt.
Okay, Dr. Taha, finally, how far from your point of view do we participate as citizens? Me and how far from your point of view can we participate as citizens, normal citizens, in this initiative?
First of all, we have to understand what's happening around us in Egypt. Second, we have to be aware that it's very important to participate in building our country, and for your
And that it's going to take time.
Yeah, and it's going to take time also. And also, the government should make more effort to facilitate communication between its institution and the citizens. We have to understand this NGO's role, that they are not foreigners people, they are from us. We have to be involved in the processes it's undergoing now, and but first of all, I think we are in the core of the fight against we are against it's fighting against the poverty, the ignorance, and this is a blind invisible enemy. We have to be solidar. We have to work together. We have to share responsibility among us to fight all of these problems.
Indeed, more cohesion needed,
Yes.
and patience also needed until all of these efforts that have started to bear fruit finally complete the beautiful picture in our beautiful
As
country.
you mentioned, it's a matter of time.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Taha Ali, political researcher, for being with us here.
Dr. Taha, it was our utmost pleasure having you today with us in our program. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for your informative knowledge that you always add to our program, of course. And it's always a pleasure to see you and be with us in our programs and in interviews, because you're a great addition and of great value. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. You are welcome, and a good day.
Thank you so much. Well, dear viewers, this is all for this segment of Nile Cruise. And dear viewers, don't go away. We have more for you today in today's episode of Nile Cruise. Me and Mohammed, don't go away. We'll be right back.